Meeting of the Board of Interpreters for Deaf, Deafblind, and Hard of Hearing in Lansing, Michigan, October 25th, that is also being live streamed and recorded. My name is Colleen Curtis with the Michigan Qualified Interpreter Program within the Bureau of Community and Health Systems. Thank you to the board members and the members of the public who are in attendance today and those joining us by Zoom. Before we get started, a few items I would like to go over. As mentioned, this in-person board meeting that is also being live streamed for members of the public to participate in who are unable to attend in person. The agenda and Zoom information are posted on the Michigan Qualified Interpreter website found at michigan.gov/BCHS. After the meeting, the approved minutes will also be posted on the website. This meeting is being live streamed and the in-person meeting is provided with ASL and captioning. People with disabilities requiring additional accommodation to participate in the meeting can email Laura-BCHS qualified-interpreter@michigan.gov. For the public comment part of the meeting, the in-person audience will give comments first, then those on Zoom. We are using the Zoom webinar platform and your video and audio are currently shut off. When it is time, participants on Zoom who wish to comment should type their comments in the chat feature. If you wish to be on camera, click the icon at the bottom of the screen to raise your hand, and then we will recognize you and ask you to turn on your video and audio. Additionally, board members and department staff are not permitted to respond to public comment. Public comments are limited to around 3 minutes. Thank you for joining today and for your patience. Now I will turn this over to department staff member Heather Keel to call the meeting to order.
Good morning, everyone. It is 10:10 a.m. I will first go ahead and perform the roll call, and then we will read the communication policy. Mitch Halali.
Present.
April Davidson.
Present.
Sarah Houston.
Present.
Leslie Pertz is absent. Miriam Andrade Cuevas.
Present.
Diana McKittrick is not in attendance. James Check.
Present.
Rowan O'Doherty.
Present.
And Linda Sakura is not in attendance. So we do have a quorum. With that, I'm going to read the communication policy. The following communication policy is proposed for the Board of Interpreters for the deaf, deafblind, and hard of hearing, and visitors to facilitate successful discussion and debate during meeting proceedings. It is intended that by following this policy, communication will be achieved for everyone present and will improve the effectiveness of the meeting. Board members should wait to be recognized by the chairperson to speak. The chairperson will recognize the speaker by name and allow for adequate discussion of all issues brought before the board. At any time during the meeting, if any board member or public attendee needs adjustment in communication facilitation, they should get the attention of the chair by raising their hand. All voice votes will be taken by raising of the hand. Avoid sidebar conversations. No comments from the public will be entertained during board discussion and should be held for the public comment section of the agenda. Board members are not permitted to respond to public comment, and public comments are limited to 3 minutes. With that, we will move on to agenda item number 3, which is approval of the agenda. Can we get a motion?
This is Sarah. Motion to approve.
And can we get a second?
This is James. Second.
Okay. All in favor? All right. Let me step back for a minute. Let me go through the remainder of the roll. Mitch Lally.
Here,
or
I support the motion.
April Davidson.
I support the motion.
Okay, and Miriam.
I support the motion.
Okay. And with that, the motion is. Sorry. Sarah, Rowan?
And what about Rowan?
And yes, my apologies, and Rowan O'Doherty.
I support the motion.
Okay, with that, the motion passes and we move on to approval of minutes from the August 9th meeting. Do we have a first?
Motion to approve. This is Sarah.
And do we have a second?
Second, this is April.
Okay, we're going to do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. With there being no objections, the motion passes.
Next agenda item is old business. There is none. Moving on to agenda item number 6, new business. The first new business item is the 2024 public notice. Is there any discussion or motions?
This is Mitch speaking. I don't know if everybody sees the agenda. Or excuse me, the public notice. Is there any discussion regarding the public notice? Can I see a motion to approve the public notice? This is Rowan. I'll make a motion to approve.
I second that. This is Sarah.
Okay, go ahead.
This is Mitch. Any discussion?
April, none.
All right, let's go ahead. Well, all right, Mr. Check. Yes, this is James speaking. I just want to put out there that we've discussed, I think 2 meetings ago, the importance of having everything, video, in sign language about, the upcoming meetings and the ongoing meetings. So again, hopefully we can plan now for that public notice, get that posted in American Sign Language.
This is Sarah. That's something that just came to mind. A lot of people have talked about how this conflicts with their work day, their work schedule. Interpreters aren't able to attend these meetings because of that. I know that we are recording these meetings, but I want to make sure that we're sharing this in a location where people can see these meetings that have been archived, because personally, I don't even know where they're being housed at. So between that and thinking about possibly revising our times, if that's possible, if we can't, we can't, but it's just important that people are aware of where they can access these meetings at.
This is Mitch speaking. BCH, aren't those are downloaded? Are they posted on your website or are they not posted yet?
They're not posted yet, but we've worked with LCC to secure the dates. The notices can be amended or revised as well.
Yeah, well, just for clarification, I mean, so several meetings ago, this meeting was recorded, or is this meeting being recorded?
Yes,
and the previous ones?
yes. They're
Okay,
being
are they
recorded.
posted to the web?
We don't post them right now, but we can discuss that internally, whether or not we can post them. Yep.
Okay,
This is Sarah. This is open to the public, correct? This is an open meeting?
Mhm.
Okay, I guess what, I'm trying to figure out what the issue is.
Technical.
As long as people are aware of how to access it, because I know people have reached out and said, why is it on this day or at this time? So it's important that we communicate this to the people that we're serving. And when the recordings are going to be available, so that way people can watch the archived meetings.
Colleen, can I clarify
Sure.
really quick? All of it is foiable, so that's one thing as well. We do post the meeting minutes as well, and those are on the website
Mhm.
currently. So just to clarify that piece, but as far as we will look into posting the actual videos and what we need to do for that. Okay.
So the minutes are on the website. However, let's be aware that these minutes are in English. We
Yes.
serve deaf people. Their primary language is not English. So we have to
Yep.
keep that in mind, that we are getting this information to them in their language.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
This is April. Can I clarify your comment? So if someone wants to watch a meeting that we've had previously, do they have to put in a FOIA request in order to view the meeting?
They can do that. We will look into posting the past ones, but right now,
Okay.
it's foiable. That's one option, but we will look into just posting them in general on the website and see what we need to do for that and how we can do that.
So with the FOIA request and that process, is
Mhm.
there a cost related to that?
It depends on what exactly they're asking for and how much time. So it could be free. It could be a cost associated with it, but I'm thinking if it's just the video, it wouldn't. And I'm not a FOIA person. I just know that it's something that we can do. But there are in some cases costs associated with it. However, a lot of them are free, just depending on how large the FOIA request is. So typically, if it's not a document, then that would be a little different. It shouldn't be, hopefully not a cost associated, but let us try and get them on the website so that they're easily accessible and people don't have to jump through those hoops.
Perfect. I think that'll be amazing. Thank you.
This is Miriam. I wonder the timeline for the links or the videos to be available, and also knowing that there's going to be a bureau presentation to the American Medical Association soon. It would be great to mention about where to find these current meetings to bring awareness to the work that we're doing, the advancements that we're taking.
this is James, just to clarify, your question, American Medical Association or the meeting that we're having with the Michigan Hospital Association, which one?
Yes.
That one. Okay, Michigan Hospital Association. Okay. Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
No problem. This is Mitch. So we have a motion for the approval of the public notice. And we've had a motion, we've had a second. Are we ready to vote? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, seeing none. And then I have a second motion related to this document or to this motion. Really, it's procedural. So we have to give BCHS permission to post the notice for us. So can I have a motion for the approval to give the department staff at BCHS to be able to post this public notice regarding our board meetings pursuant to section 5 of the Open Meetings Act. Do I have a motion?
I so move. This is Sarah.
A second? This is James. I'll second that. Okay, any discussion? All right, seeing none, those in support?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, I see none, so there you go. Okay, on to new business. Item B. Partnership update. I think we should check with MD. Okay, MD is in the room. Okay, wanted to make sure. So we're gonna have a presentation from John Kirsch with MDELIO.
Where will the camera be at?
The microphone cannot interpret ASL. Sorry. Can you see me? Okay, all right. Well, hello, everyone. I just wanted to thank Laura and the board for inviting me here today. Really, my boss, Roxanne Belfour, was supposed to give this presentation, but unfortunately she couldn't make it today. So she asked me to come in her stead, and I'm willing to do that. I'm going to share some talking points with you this morning that her and I discussed. A little bit of a history behind our organization. Our office is called MDELIO. That stands for Michigan Department of Education, Low Incidence Outreach. So MDELIO, you'll hear me say LIO quite a few times during this presentation. And just for a little bit of history behind the organization, it used to be the Institute for the Blind. We had the School for the Deaf. I think we had the School for the Blind. They were separate. Due to a number of students dwindling, it became an outreach project. And at that time, it was decided that would serve both BVI and deaf and hard of hearing. So LIO started with one DHH consultant, and then over the years that has expanded to 3 at this time. And we support a lot of personnel out in the field that support DHH, teachers, consultants, administrators, and also educational interpreters. We provide workshops, we provide trainings, video recordings. We post those, webinars, and also conferences. Recently, the DHH conference was held in the spring. Currently, we're working on PA 256. If you're not familiar with that, it used to be HB 577, the lead CADE bill. More people know it as that. Language accessibility, language equality and acquisition for deaf kids, so AKA lead K, and focused on the goal of kindergarten readiness for all DHH students. Lead K started as a grassroots effort. And that effort was to ensure that deaf children would have access to language. And so for the last 50 plus years, the average reading level by 18 years of age for deaf students has remained at the 3rd or 4th grade level, typically. And that's due to the lack of early, fully accessible visual language exposure, which may be a contributing factor to those low reading levels that we just mentioned amongst the deaf population. So goal is to remove barriers that lead to limited access to language development due to accessibility, deaf and hard of hearing children. That is the goal of the legislation. And This will be accomplished by creating a developmental milestone checklist as a parent resource. And then also, in addition to it being a parent resource, we would be tracking language outcomes for deaf and hard of hearing children ages 0 to 5. So we'll track that time period. To date, there are approximately 23 states that have passed Lead K legislation. So as I mentioned, Michigan passed what was known as House Bill 5777. That was passed in November of 2022, so not too long ago, was signed into law by the governor in December of 2022. Lead K PA 256, that is going to involve 15 committee members. The act describes those, the work that they're going to do along with the department. MDE-LIO is the recipient of those funds and has a working list of persons that have shown interest in serving on the committee, as well as others that will be vital in providing input for this work. As of right now, we are currently working with the Office of Special Education. And once the committee members, the funding, once all that is in place, we'll begin working with the committee team, bringing them together to start this work. And then we'll start sharing on a statewide level the progress of how that is going. In conjunction with that work, we also have Michigan guidelines for educational interpreting for students who are deaf, blind, and hard of hearing. And we're in the draft form right now. The purpose of that is to assist school districts in providing appropriate educational interpreting services to students who are deaf, blind, or hard of hearing. So in Michigan, those students, require services that are determined by the individual educational plan or the IEP process, the individual family service plan, IFSP, that team, or a 504 plan. So that is the first of its kind here in Michigan. It's currently in draft form. Like I said, we do have the stakeholders identified. We have received that feedback back to us. And so we are working internally currently to work through those things to mitigate that process. And hopefully we'll be able to release that in a few months. I want to talk about the EIPA, the Educational Interpreter Performance Assessment. For those of you that don't know, that assessment is what's needed to be qualified to work as an educational interpreter. And so there's a scoring rating. In Michigan, you have to have a 4.0 or better. And that is from Boys Town, the organization that does all the testing, does the evaluation. Each state has some type of assessment. So those tests are sent to Boys Town, they're evaluated, and scores are assessed. And we would not be able to provide that. We're not able to provide the information on the numbers of educational interpreters that are underqualified. We don't have access to that. As far as the EIPA, some have asked me about underqualified educational interpreters. We don't have access to that data either. The EIPA assessment, just an update there on the exam. Performance and written tests are conducted by Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services, which is an agency in Grand Rapids. If a candidate was interested, they can sign up. You can look at under Boys Town, there's a designation, a website, classroom interpreting page. You can click on, find an assessment. Click on that tab. And then In the filter drop-down menu, if you choose, well, you can see what the different tests are. You can also choose Michigan to see the different dates that are available. Up till now, there's no other locations in Michigan besides Grand Rapids. There's just that one. However, we have received some inquiries from other organizations about, how could we set up additional locations? We're still working. Well, the goal for them is to proctor test locally. So we're still working with that. There's a lot of efforts to try to connect them with Boys Town. Related to educational interpreters, this year, we do have an educational interpreter workshop that is going to provide some training. There are 2 for 2024 that are in the works. The one is ethics and values, what guides your decisions. That's going to be Saturday, January 27th, 2024. And the presenter is going to be Amber Tucker. Registration is open or will open early in December. So that's coming up. And then the second workshop is going to be April 27th, 2024. That's entitled Use of Space and Discourse Mapping. And the presenter there is going to be Jennifer Hayes, also nationally recognized presenter, and early registration will open late February. And so we have some links where you can subscribe to updates from MDE-LIO. The main page, MDE-LIO Outreach. And then we have an events page as well that lists all of our upcoming events. And then we're also on Facebook. MDELIO.social. You can find that on Facebook. And that is my update. Thank you very much. This is Mitch speaking. Do any members of the board have any specific questions for John, MDE-LIO? James? Yes, this is James speaking. So I appreciate all that information, giving us the history and some of the changes and what you plan to do in the future. Really recognize the importance of interpreters being involved. So we made some mention about wanting to connect local organizations for providing assessments, et cetera. I'm curious how their, what is their vision related to deaf education? So Rowan shrugged. Thank you for that. I'm wondering, does it look like, is it going to be doom and gloom, positive, negative? What do they think the outlook is going to be? That's an important part of us, establishing a plan. So I'm just curious. I mean, we don't have to answer that today, but I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, thanks. This is Mitch. Second question about the workshops, the educational interpreter workshops. Are those face-to-face or are those done virtually? I don't know, John, I don't know if you're ready to respond to that or not, or if you can.
I meant to say virtually.
Okay, John. All right, John said virtually. Okay. All right, perfect. Thank you. And John, did you see the first question that what James mentioned? I don't know. Can you respond or maybe another time? Another time. Okay, thank you. All right, so next we have Annie Uraski from DOD-DBHH. She's going to be on Zoom.
Chair. Thank you, committee. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present today. And I apologize I couldn't be there in person. Unfortunately, I had some medical issues going on today, so I wasn't able to be there in person. I want to talk about some updates related to the Division on Deaf, Blind, and Hard of Hearing, which is DOD DBHH. Currently, our team exists of 3 people, myself as the director, also Elena Lael as the Deaf, Blind, and Hard of Hearing liaison, and our student assistant, Kat Walters, and she is a senior at MSU. And the 3 of us make up the division. Our mission is to confirm the rights and securities of the effective communication for Michigan residents who identify as deaf, blind, and hard of hearing. And what does that mean? That means that we have to focus on elevating awareness regarding the needs and experiences and preferences of people within our community. That means we work with legislation, state agencies, service providers, community members about cultural competency, concerns related to communication access, and other general communication access related issues. For example, captioning resources, hearing assistance. We have different technologies. We assist with that. And we also have a governor appointed council, advisory council. There's 13 members. That is made of at least 7 members who identify as deaf, blind, and hard of hearing. We typically meet about 3 times a year at various locations throughout the state. We just met in October 13th. We were excited to have Laura and BCHS come out to speak. They have a permanent spot on our agenda now at every meeting. So we will be bringing them in, and we appreciate their support and willingness to collaborate with us on this. I want to shift to talking about some activities related to the division, things that we're doing. And I also want to talk about some of the interpreting related concerns that have been going on within the community that we've heard thus far. Something I think it's important to bring up. I also appreciate seeing Laura BCHS to engaging with the community. I appreciate that. Last month, there was a lot of organizations that came together for a Deaf Awareness Day in honor of Deaf Awareness Month. We went to Grand Rapids for a Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services Deaf Celebration Day. Laura's staff also was present and meeting people within the community, doing outreach and learning more. So I want to thank you and commend you for that. I also saw them at the Deaf Celebration Day for Deaf Can in Southfield. The staff was also present at that. I think it's excellent to see that collaboration within the community. I just want to take a moment to recognize that. Something we're focused on is we were honored to be selected as one of the 7 states that is partnering with Gallaudet University and Idaho State University on a program that's called PEHI. And what that acronym means is Promoting Equity in Healthcare Interpreting. The goal of that 5-year grant is to elevate healthcare skills and experiences for interpreters who haven't really had a lot of experience working in the medical field or in healthcare. And it also focuses on those who live in rural areas that might not have opportunities to be able to attend trainings and continuing education to learn what it's like to become a medical interpreter. So this would give them access to those things. I would say the last fiscal year, the PEHI program had asked us to post the application for the cohort. And that cohort is a 5-month online project. And those candidates who were selected had to go through an immersive online curriculum and learning those basic skills as far as medical terminology, things of that nature, specific for healthcare interpreting. So I'm pleased to tell you that the PEHI team selected 9 Michigan working interpreters through this program. It was technically 10, but there's 9 that are actually still going through the program currently. And after this program is completed, the next step is PEHI will be recruiting mentors to work with those and working interpreters who've already gone through the program, AKA graduated from the program. That'll give them some hands-on experience working within the medical profession. Mentor applications will be posted this fiscal year. Currently, the PHI is also communicating with Laura BCHS, and we are setting up a meeting in order to have a conversation about the mentoring program and what that's going to look like and making sure that everything is approved. The PEHI is also planning on having conversations with several medical programs here in the state of Michigan to see if they will approve the mentoring project that we have in mind and doing that hands-on work here in Michigan. That 5-year grant is a budget through the federal government, through the REHAB, the RSA Act, the Rehab Service Administration Act. And with that, the purpose of that is to elevate awareness regarding the deaf, blind, and hard of hearing community regarding their experiences within the medical field. We're also being asked to record deaf people throughout the state and take video of them sharing their experiences, their raw stories and experiences that they've had happen to them in a medical setting. And then we're going to bring that back to the PEHI team, and they're going to be editing that to use that as a part of their training and their curriculum. So we're thrilled to be collaborating on that effort. There's 7 other states that are engaging in this project, and I want to thank Laura BCHS for engaging in this conversation and helping set up this mentoring program as well. Thank you for that. I also want to take a moment to talk about some training opportunities. We've gone through a lot of changes due to COVID and the pandemic. So since that's happened, we've noticed issues within the community. There's been a lot of frustration regarding access to communication. For instance, not bringing in interpreters or working with service providers who don't have a clue as far as what the law requires, because perhaps that person there might have been an individual at that entity that was trained and familiar with how to work with the deaf community, but they have now left. So we have to start that training again within those with those stakeholders, and also with state agencies as well, to elevate awareness regarding the needs of the deaf community and that cultural competency piece. A good example of this would be, we were just asked to provide a training to a dental office. Unfortunately, there was a complaint that was filed against this dental office, and there was a settlement that required them to take training on competencies on how to engage with deaf, blind, and hard of hearing individuals. Even though it was a small office, a small dental office, I think they only had approximately 6 or 7 staff members. It's still important that they are trained, because you never know when you might encounter a deaf, blind, or hard of hearing individual. And those individuals have rights to equal access to communication. The dental office maybe did not realize that there was tax incentives, how to use the interpreter database, all that information. So we're providing that training to make sure that they are able to work with the deaf, blind, and hard of hearing community efficiently. And that way they can utilize their services. We're also going to be doing another training. We were invited to do a training with medical students, and they actually reached out to us saying that they wanted to learn more about how to work with interpreters, how to serve the community. They were telling us that they want to think about these things before they actually jump into the medical field. So I think this is going to be a great opportunity to expose these medical students to our community. And we also are invited to the ITP program, the interpreter training programs throughout the state, which is where we present about deaf people's rights, the laws, and how it impacts the community. So that way students, even if before they decide to sit for their interpreter certification, they're more aware of what the division does and what services we offer and different programs that impact our community, building that awareness. We're also doing a lot of training with school districts and students. Elena Lale, I just have to give a shout out to her and her amazing hard work in building relationships with several deaf and hard of hearing programs throughout the state to provide advocacy training to empower the students to be able to advocate for themselves and how to navigate the world at large. And if they're at transition age, teaching them how to empower themselves and still trying to you know, at that age, they're trying to develop their identity as figuring out where they fit in, what their preferences are as far as communication. So Elena's done a really wonderful job at facilitating those conversations in the community and bringing awareness to these different programs that are available. And also, these trainings don't just happen once a year, they're year round, which I think is amazing because we see these students actually growing and elevating to a whole nother level. I really do strongly believe these trainings are critical because these trainings develop relationships between the community, the students, the staff who works in those programs, and the division as well. Because once you transition out of school, out of the K-12 program, that transition, whether it's employment, whether it's further education, you're going to require some more advocating for yourself. And they might not be able to get interpreters, for instance, if they went to a job interview or any of those things. We try to empower them to make them aware of what state agencies have resources available and creating those relationships as early as possible. And that's been a priority for us, working with the school districts in order to provide that training to deaf and hard of hearing students. And this fiscal year, we're going to be shifting our trainings to be specific to community members. We know that during the pandemic, a lot of us experienced isolation. We didn't really have that opportunity to engage and see each other in person. So we're starting to shift back to that and connecting with the deaf and deafblind and hard of hearing service agencies, the disability organizations who have asked us to come out and host community sessions in the regions in order to provide training that's specific to awareness regarding rights and what their rights are. And what we're hoping for is to reconnect with the community and get a pulse on what's happening in the community. We just started this last month with these listening sessions with the Flint, Michigan deaf community. We went out there and had conversations with them at the Flint Association of the Deaf. I also want to shift over to having a conversation regarding other state agencies. Some key areas of focus that we've been working on. One of them that I sort of mentioned had to do with students within this school district. Our relationship with the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, which their acronym is LEO, they oversee the Michigan Rehab Services, Michigan Rehabilitation Services, MRS, which is a vocational rehabilitation service. They are heavily focused on maintaining relationships, and we are also focused on that as well, because we are aware there are some concerns relating to employment opportunities for our community and transition options. So we're trying to find any opportunities to collaborate with the community and with the state agencies who need to hear about these issues and concerns that are happening within the community. We met with what we call the Business Network Division, which is also housed under MRS, the Michigan Rehabilitation Services. We had a meeting with them, and what they do is oversee all of the field offices in the state that provide rehab services to consumers who need access to their services. And then that also includes the deaf-blind and hard of hearing population, and elevating awareness regarding the cultural component, because people who work in that office also work with businesses and service providers who might be hiring people with disabilities. So we're trying to, it doesn't make sense to do double the work, right? We're trying to align our efforts in order to push this forward, in order to create real change at a policy level and making sure that people within our community who need their services are actually getting their services. As you just heard from John Kirsch from the Michigan Department of Education Low Incidence Outreach, I can tell you that MRS and also MDE-LIO are working in collaboration on what we want to call transition resources, which is data relating to deaf, blind, and hard of hearing students. John is guiding the state team in this in partnership with the National Deaf Center and post-secondary education. And we're comparing data from other states and seeing what other states are doing currently and what's been effective and what we can do to improve our transition services for students who identify as deaf, blind, and hard of hearing. I really want to commend John and his great work in leading that effort. We're honored to be at the table and have an invitation and a seat there and having those conversations with Michigan Rehabilitative Services and also Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. One thing that I'm very passionate about as a director is shifting some of the focus on issues relating to the aging population. And that is a big issue at this moment. I wanted to bring that up because we've been having conversations with other state agencies and directors regarding the deaf, blind, and hard of hearing, that those directors who are engaged in that work already. There was a summit that we had a Deaf National Black Association convention. And one of the things that we heard repeatedly at that convention is, I'll just throw out some data points. By the year 2035, the number of aging Americans will outweigh the children, the youth. What does that mean for our community? That means that those who are getting services currently within group homes, nursing homes, living centers, are they providing direct communication as far as access and mental health services, healthcare services, any of that? We don't want to wait until 2035 to address this issue. We don't want to wait till then to make sure that the Office of Aging is taking care of these things, the Office of Aging within the state. We want to have these conversations ahead of time about what the community needs. And the state of Arizona, they set up what they call the campaign as far as the reauthorization of the Aging Americans Act, which is in 2024. Traditionally, the word deaf and hard of hearing in that act is very minimal. That language is very minimal. It doesn't say anything about direct communication access, assistive technology. It doesn't really expand on the diversity in the experience and within our community. So I think that's an important piece to acknowledge. We're also working closely with the Office of Aging. We just got invited to present at the Area on Aging to elevate our concerns as far as what we can do to collaborate and work together, and what they can do within justifying additional funding to make sure that this population is being served and their needs are being met. And that's been a key component for us as far as what we're focused on and priorities. And in addition to that, we're also serving the members of the Elderly Abuse Task Force, as we are working with that. And that is a huge initiative that's thanks to the Attorney General, Dana Nessel. We want to make sure that we're communicating, that they have communication access within the community, and the concerns that they have are actually being met. We are having conversations, and we are seeing that there are reports that are coming to the surface as far as people who are exploiting their money and within the deaf, blind, and hard of hearing, a lot of scams happening. They host a monthly meeting, and I have attended them. Right now, as far as the legislation, they've just passed bills regarding guardians as far as requirements in reporting. So that has been a big initiative for the Attorney General's office, and we are happy to be a part of that and honored to be a part of that process, because our community has unique communication needs as service providers and the elderly population and the abuse task force. And I also wanted to mention the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, which is where the Division of Deaf, Blind, and Hard of Hearing is housed under. We're having a lot of conversations relating to interpreting, whether it's an interpreter isn't qualified in a certain setting, or a medical facility is not providing interpreters because they might not know what to do. We're having those conversations, and what we do is we'll refer them. If there's an issue directly related to interpreting to the interpreters, we refer that right over to Lara BCHS. And we explain to them, because some people within the community still think that we are in charge of the interpreter credentials and certification. However, it's important that we communicate that we can refer them to BCHS. We can make that link to make sure that they are aware that the community knows they are here and they can follow up. And if there's anything we can do to support you, that's important that we have those conversations and collaboration. And the resources so what we do at our department is we provide a lot of resources. We're also seeing issues within the failure to accommodate. And that language is typically used when service providers who are legally obligated to provide accommodations deny accommodation requests. Here's an example. Say if I, as a deaf patient, I want to access services at a doctor's office. I call the medical office to schedule an appointment. I tell them I need an interpreter. They say, no, we won't provide an interpreter. Or they might say, we'll have an interpreter. And then I show up to the doctor's appointment and I'm told that morning at my appointment, there's no interpreter provided. That's a failure to accommodate. And that is me experiencing discrimination. That's harm because you did not provide the accommodation based upon my disability and my request. So that type of complaint will be sent directly over to our enforcement division, or our unit that's also housed under the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. And specifically with those cases, if the harm has happened within 180 days, that's 6 months, then we would file a complaint. If it's employment related, then you have a longer time frame. If it's housing related, you even have a longer time frame in order to file that complaint. But it's just important that we get these referrals out and people get this information. For people who have recently experienced some sort of catastrophe or issue, we try to get them in as soon as possible, as opposed to waiting till the very last minute, and letting individuals know in the community that they have options, how they can file a complaint. They can call, they can schedule a virtual intake through Zoom. For instance, like how we're doing now, they can ask for accommodations before they have their meeting in order to be able to access the information. And we also have a form online, our website. And one thing I did find quite impressive, and I wanted to make sure that you all are aware of this, the Department of Civil Rights just released in year 2022, the numbers that traditionally, the numbers of complaints filed by Michigan residents that are under the protected classes, typically complaints that are filed, the majority of them are race related, but now those in the year of 2022, the number of complaints are disability based that have come up. And so we need to do a better job at educating service providers, because now we're seeing that there's more complaints regarding disability as opposed to just race. Now we're seeing the difference there. And so it's important that you file those complaints so that way we can bring these concerns forward to the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. And there's specific statistics related to the number of complaints that are filed and that are for failure to comply. I would like to share those numbers as far as fiscal year 21. The system shows that they had 9 certified complaints in the year of 2021. That's fiscal year. And then fiscal year 22, we have 4 certified complaints regarding failure to accommodate, and they did not provide an ASL services. Currently, we don't have a statistics relating to the federal complaints. We don't have those numbers as far as that department that's housed federally, but the EEOC, what they do is the equity or employment equity, they take complaints on the federal level. What they've told us, though, they have seen the most numbers they've ever seen as far as complaints regarding employment in the deaf and hard of hearing community than they've ever seen currently. So we're looking for current collaborations with the LARA and BCH staff and the Board of Interpreters. We want to make sure that we're collaborating with all of you in order to have our residents of Michigan who identify as deaf, blind, and hard of hearing, that we are able to serve them and make them aware of what resources are available to them. And we plan on doing a town hall with the interpreter rules. And I know that you plan on doing that. I am more than happy to collaborate with you all. I would love to let the residents know what's going on regarding the rules. And then we could also collaborate with our advisory council on that town hall in order to get things done. We're more than happy to collaborate. One last thing I want to mention. We are also looking at the national level as well for interpreting. I think it's very critical that we take a look at this. We sent this information over to Laura a while ago, and the state of Minnesota, they established a task force called Interpreting Forward. Interpreting Forward. And the state recognized that Minnesota's RID chapter, they did a survey with the Minnesota interpreters, and they said, okay, well, the state needs to step up and establish a task force and collaborate with different entities because there was concerns about issues regarding the quality of interpreters and availability. And this survey actually showed that almost half of all working interpreters within Minnesota imagine working less or retiring in the next few years. And additional interpreters who are coming into the field, there's not enough coming in to make up for the ones that are about to come out. So they were trying to make suggestions on how they could increase the interpreter population within Minnesota. We're having those conversations nationwide as well. And then I also want to mention two things relating to telehealth. With COVID, that had a huge impact on the view of the medical profession as far as how do we define effective communication and access? Typically, providers wanted to use VRI, and we are aware of that. We were familiar with that in our community, but then doctors started shifting over to telehealth. Then, so both of us were shifting this way. So it was very unique experience as far as providing interpreters during that telehealth experience. So if that's an option that they're offering, as far as the platform that they're using and access for those who rely on interpreting and captioning as well. And also making sure that these new platforms are accessible and that these are options that are offered, but not the only option that is offered. And the impact of artificial intelligence, AI, in the interpreting field and the communication, that's already here. It's arrived. But we need to make sure that our needs and experiences and preferences aren't left behind when it comes to AI and these advancements in technology. I think that's it from me. I appreciate you all, and I'm happy to be here. I can ask any questions you have, and I want to thank you, the interpreter who's doing ASL to English, because I know that was a lot. Hi.
This is Mitch speaking. Thank you, Annie. I don't know, can you see me? All right, perfect. Okay. So thank you for your presentation. I want to first ask the board if there's any questions or comments for Annie. Hi, this is Sarah. Yeah. Not really a comment, but I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to come today and give that presentation, voice your concerns and what you're thinking about as related to interpreters, qualifications out in the community. It's valuable for us as interpreters to hear that from you. So it's time to raise our game. Sarah said, step up our game. Hi, Andy, this is James. So really engrossed in your comments about, traveling around, the exposure in what Elaine has been doing. How can we get a hold of you? What's a specific email for getting in touch regarding that program? I know you're out doing education, but for us, to try to, as you're traveling around, how we get that information to interpreters, interpreters will show up and say, hey, we need this, we need that, but we don't know really, what your comments are, what you're saying, what you're doing. So that we have a consistent message across the board. If you could send that to us, best way to contact and make that interpreter education partnership, then we can work together to make sure that interpreters know what the state is saying. And that'd be great. So it'd be a good opportunity for us to get together, have some discussions, and educate ourselves. So if you wouldn't mind, can you maybe put that in the chat? Which email address would be the best if we're looking for setting up some type of future program, etc. event? And thank you.
This is Annie. This is Annie signing. Sure. I can verbalize it. Also type it in the chat. If you want to partner on opportunities as far as providing joint workshops, I'd be more than happy to do that. I think it's important that people who are in the community are aware of what interpreters do and are aware that these things are here. So we're happy to collaborate with you. We have 2 pieces of contact information. I'll give you my email and Elena's. I'll type it in the chat as well. So my email is uraskya@michigan.gov. Elena's email is laila@michigan.gov. Also, you can call us on the video phone. That number is 313-437-7035. There seems to be some audio issues with the captioning. I'll type it in the chat. All right, just keep us posted and we can set up some meetings. This is James. Thank you.
I have a question. First of all, Annie, I commend you for your presentation. I just in seeing how pivotal your work, education-wise, and my question to you is, do you have, you mentioned about when partnering with clinics, dental clinics or hospitals, there's a lot of turnover. So new team members on and off. Do you have virtual modules, like self-paced modules that could be available for healthcare systems, clinics, and so on in the educational field, in the medical field, just to make sure that we're preparing, like you said, and this part gave me just chills, and just to see the impact that you could have with the education, preparing for our aging community on 2035. Like you said, you could build it so well to educating all of our systems. Me representing, working in the healthcare industry, knowing how much turnover and new employees we have, that it would be great to have a self-paced module to, have accessible for how do we engage, how do we provide services, the whys, the reasoning behind ASL or whatnot, right? Anything educational that you could provide. And so thank you for asking the question about how to contact you. I just think the work that you're doing is great. So thank you for that.
This is Annie. Annie signing. Thank you. I will take that feedback. Thank you. Typically, we provide trainings that are based upon the request. We modify our trainings based upon that. We can do virtual or we can do them in person. I'm pretty excited to hear that the board is going to be speaking with the Michigan Hospital Association. I think that's excellent. That's a great group to work with. We worked with them previously as well. So I will take that feedback. Thank you for that. I'm going to make a note.
This is April. I just have a brief question, and maybe I missed this. You could clarify it for me, so I apologize. Seems like every meeting, we talk about the complaint process, and I bring that up, complaining about the complaint process. I want to clarify. I think I understand that for complaints that are filed related to interpreters, providing interpreters, or if they're providing underqualified interpreters, those complaints go to BCHS. But if there's no interpreter provided at all, that's a failure to accommodate, and that would go to MDCR. So those are 2 separate types of complaints, correct?
This is Annie signing. I'm happy to clarify. If the complaint itself is against the interpreter themselves, then if they say an interpreter took a job that they knew they weren't qualified for and they continue to interpret for that assignment, that would be assigned to Lara BCHS. Or if the appointing authority took the risk on, then they took the risk of bringing an unqualified interpreter in, relating to the waiver process as well. There's that too, but you would go to Lara BCHS regarding that, the underqualification. If there's a failure to accommodate, say at a medical facility or somewhere that has a legal obligation to provide sign language interpreters, and they deny the accommodation request, then you would be coming to the Michigan Department of Civil Rights. So say you're going to an appointment and there's no interpreter there when you've already made the request. That is regarding your disability. You are a protected class, therefore you have rights. And if they do not accommodate, you are able to file a complaint through Michigan Department of Civil Rights. And is that clear? Can everyone see me?
Yeah, this is April. That's clear. Thank you very much. And this is Mitch speaking. Hey, Annie. Hey, I have a question. If you would, that complaint, filing about failure to accommodate. You recently gave some numbers, and I don't know, maybe like April, I didn't catch that either, but fiscal year 2022, did you say 4 failure to accommodate complaints?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, so for me, that seems like low. And so my question is, do you have any thoughts about why that number would be so low? What are the barriers for people to file those complaints, within 180 days, that time frame? Do you think that's the issue, or is it communication? Is it awareness? Because interesting, you talked about MDCR and the complaints going up for the protective class of disabilities. I'm also curious, what is your perspective? Do you think that numbers increased because it's more discrimination going on, or because it's more awareness on how to report? Although that was like 3 or 4 questions to my one question at the same time, but that's what they are.
This is Annie signing. Great. I just want to make sure the captioning was showing up. Okay, so the number, I'll mention that again. In the fiscal year 21, there was 9 certified complaints that were filed. In fiscal year 22, there was 4 certified complaints. I think based upon the type of complaints, there was a mixture of 2. There's education and disability. There's more experiences of discrimination that have happened because due to the pandemic that highlighted the inequities for a lot of community members, including the disability community. And I think that had an impact on how you're seeing the numbers. One thing I can bring forward is that the unit that my division is housed under is the Disability Rights and Compliance Division. And they plan on expanding their unit by hiring more personnel, more staff, and doing more outreach work and education regarding the disability community, regarding to reporting, how to report, MDCR complaints, what exactly we do, educating service providers as to what their legal obligation is regarding the ADA and applicable Michigan state laws that oversee the disability rights. So we're partnering with them on these things. We're planning on expanding training opportunities, like I had mentioned previously, and educating people within the community that Michigan Department of Civil Rights is a resource, and we are here for you. We can always refer people. We can't tell them that they have to file a complaint. That's not something we do. We can't force anyone to do that. That is something they have to make a decision on their own to do, but we can empower them with information. Some people prefer to file with the federal government as opposed to the state level. So we just give them the options that they have. We can make those referrals and we empower them to make their own decisions because it is their life and it is the risk and the harm that could happen to them. So they can make their own choices. But I think education within the community is going to be key.
Okay, this is Mitch speaking. So, I know as far as interpreters are, we tend to we're in the frontline staff, correct? We're there. We see deaf people, daily. So, and they tell us their stories, their experiences, and very often I'll take that in, their experience of discrimination. So I know that interpreters, we have to follow the CPC, but at the same time, the CPC says that we are allowed to offer resources, and we can say, hey, that if you feel like you were discriminated against, then we can offer, MDCR as a resource. I just want to make sure that interpreters know that, our obligation, that is our obligation. And under the CPC, we're required to do that. So if people say, hey, man, I went to the doctor's office and there was no interpreter provided, often that comment or that story stops right there. So as interpreters, Mitch's opinion, we have the obligation under the CPC not to force them, just like Annie, right? You can't force people to file complaints, but like you said, you say, hey, that problem, that issue of not having an interpreter, you can refer that to Department of Civil Rights or DOD, DBHH. If you got an interpreter who was not certified or not qualified satisfactory, you can get a hold of Laura BCHS. So I just want to make sure that people are aware, especially interpreter people, that they know that they can do that. And then secondly, I had another question for you. Or not. I think you answered all of those. Thank you. I apologize, but thanks, Annie. And then Miriam has something to say.
You spark a thought here, Mitch. This is Miriam speaking. Wondered, instead of, or plus, adding to what you're saying, as interpreters, we have the obligation, right? Yes. How can we partner and with especially the entities that should be compliant with providing access to these services, to language services, an after visit survey where a link to, or information about where to file a complaint if, the patient, or if it's the educational system or whatever the system we're talking about, the service, there's an after visit, how we send after visit summaries or, whatnot, like, or a survey on how was your service. And by the way, here is where you can file a complaint. I don't know how we can make that happen, but it's just bringing visibility instead of going word of mouth. How can we put the onus on the entity itself to make that happen?
This is Annie signing. Maybe that's a project that Laura BCHS and I can partner on. That might be something.
This is James. Oh, go ahead, James. So when DOD, DBHH, and Laura BCHS partners set something up, I would like to recommend that not only from the perspective of the person filing the complaint, but also from having medical staff involved who can see something and say, hey, this place where I work is not providing the appropriate services. I've told them and they say no, and I keep seeing this. Many of the staff just don't say anything. They can also be empowered to file a complaint against the place where they work. And maybe some internal motivation to get something done. So that's one part I think has been missing throughout this whole process. I work in a giant healthcare institution, and many of them, they have great hearts. They're good, honest people, but they don't know. And either they don't know or they're frustrated with the services. And so they just, power through it. They don't really do anything, or they don't know how. So individually, do they complain to you? Can we get you to come and provide some education, something like that? I want the staff in those medical places to be able to file complaints and understand what that process is. Get Laura, BCHS to come and present or to come and after the complaint is filed. I'm sorry, I'm very a little hot with that, got to be honest, but it's something that just came to me, interpreter perspective, deaf perspective. Yep. But what about the perspective of, these other people? We're lucky that we're under BCHS, but the health system, their perspective, we need to work together to encourage that type of knowledge as well, and to raise that type of knowledge and to provide those accommodations.
This is Sarah. I just wanted to add a comment to that. Whew, I love all that. I loved all of that. Okay. And for them at the hospital, the staff, as far as the personnel there, and they might see an interpreter and say, something isn't right here. Effective communication seems to not be happening. Giving the power to that staff in order to say, I can tell effective communication is not happening. So that means that every person in the room is accountable to reporting. I think that's a nice piece. I would love to see that, some sort of system where all parties who are involved, and especially the deaf community, can say, all right, yep, that interpreter was good. That's my preferred interpreter. And that interpreter is not for me. That's my vision for the future. And I would love to see that in the state of Michigan.
This is Mitch speaking. And those two comments from the board, yes, I agree. I think the interpreter legislation, possibly we can have, complaints filed related to the interpreter if the interpreter is there and they're not satisfactory, they're underqualified, they're not certified. I think that we can have, hearing people file complaints. I just wonder about, Annie, under your, failure to accommodate scenario, that is based on a protected class of disabilities. People who work in the health system, at the hospital, those staff people, do they have a stand? Do they have a standing and authority to go ahead and file those types of complaints? Is that true?
This is Annie. Annie signing here. Honestly, anyone can fill out a complaint form or request a certified complaint through the department. The department will oversee and review and assess based upon if they have the power to do that, and if that individual who is filing a complaint or who experienced this against them, if they're a protected class, they would be able to screen those things based upon different parameters. We have race, gender, height, weight, disability, age, national origin, gender identity, sexual orientation. All of those are protected classes. So it could fall under any of those under the umbrella of that. And the enforcement unit would be the one who would decide that.
Okay, this is Mitch speaking. So the person who files the complaint, do they have to have experienced harm themselves?
This is Annie signing yes. Or the individual who wants to file a certified complaint can also have someone who can help them fill out the complaint. Also, the individual who's filing a complaint can also say this other person witnessed this incident where the harm occurred, and that could be a part of the process as far as the investigation goes.
Okay, so that means that I see something, I actually see it, I see harm occur, I can go ahead and file a complaint. And then MDCR would go ahead and investigate that and possibly contact that person who was harmed. I believe based on what I observed, they were harmed. I can file that complaint, and then maybe that could work its way through the process. I'm the one who's filing basically on their behalf.
This is Annie signing. That's a great question. So the individual who experienced the actual harm has to be a part of the process. Like cannot be excluded. For instance, say a person has a family member who is helping them fill out the forms, or say they're working with an organization who helps them and they are struggling to fill out the form, whether English was not their first language and they might need help with filling that out. That is something that can be done, but the complaint form has to technically come from the individual experience the harm. So you can't just fill out a form without their awareness. They have to be aware of that because they were the one who was being harmed. That's part of the process.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Excellent. Thank you. Any other comments or questions for Annie? Okay. Thank you, Annie. Appreciate for all your work. We appreciate your presentation and we look forward to collaborating with you in the future.
This is Annie signing. Thank you. Please feel free to reach out if you need anything. Thank you all.
Okay, Mitch speaking. Now, I'm going to ask the board for permission to take a 15-minute break. Okay. All right, we're adjourned for 15 minutes. Calling the meeting back to order. Now we have BCHS update. And we'll give our attention to Heather.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Good to see Miriam back. Welcome. So today I'm going to give a quick update and then we're going to bring you something I'm super excited about. Katrina, which many of you met last time, pulled, and our QI team pulled some data, which was asked for. So excited to give that to you, but please know there was a lot of bit of work that went into that because our old database doesn't pull the information the way we like it to. So, but we'll get into the data after I give a quick update for BCHS. Yep. And is it closer? Yeah. Better? Still not good? Can you guys hear me better now? Okay, I guess I just had to be a little bit closer. All right, Colleen, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this is one of our standard slides, but just as a reminder, the things that our program does is we proctor our exams, both the TEP and the BEI exams, certify individuals, process and renew applications for sign language interpreters, the certifications, and then also accepted, is it still okay? Sorry, just want to make sure. Also accepted certification, the accepted certification credentials in Michigan, just as a reminder, RID, EIPA, and then of course BEI, the basic, advanced, and master's levels. All right, next slide. Oh, got it. So the other thing that we wanted to just remind everybody or kind of give you an update on what has been happening in BCHS is we've worked with our IT area to update our registry and make some changes, clean up some dates. That's something that last time we talked about, having individuals that were expired on the list, and also continuing to process the renewals, making sure that's all up to date and on our registry. So those expired individuals fall off, I believe, about 120 days after their expiration to allow for that grace period. Another exciting update that we have is our testing room for the BEI exams has been updated, actually created a new testing room dedicated to qualified interpreters exams. So that's really exciting. Has brand new equipment, a new backdrop. So some of our past challenges that we heard with testing was the room and the environment. And so we wanted to make sure we had an optimal environment for that. And on that, while we're talking about performance exams, we have no backlogs currently. So when we receive those applications asking to do performance exams, we're all caught up and those are being scheduled as they come in. As Annie mentioned, staff went to our QI staff, went to Deaf Awareness Celebration. So that's exciting. The event in Grand Rapids and Southfield, and we really enjoyed meeting people, seeing everyone, and getting to know the community better. So that was nice. And I know Annie mentioned this as well, but for those of you that maybe are just joining, we have been working with Annie and MDCR, as well as Idaho State University to discuss partnership and collaboration, as she mentioned, with ISU and Gallaudet on the PEHI healthcare training. So that's exciting, and we'll have more information coming out on that shortly. And we intend to send out information to all of you and on the board, those on our listserv, as well as posting on our website when that kind of comes to fruition and gets a little closer. And then also we attended the MDCR Advisory Council, which Annie mentioned. We enjoyed going there and giving the update and seeing some familiar faces and meeting some new people and hearing what's going on. And also, since we have John here, I just wanted to say, John Kurz, they gave an update there as well. And it was great to kind of learn more about the program. So that's another reason why BCHS enjoys going to these events, is we're learning about everyone's programs. And Annie's been great in getting us involved with that as well, and helping us as we've been learning over the past couple of years. So thank you for those invites. Next slide, please, Colleen. So update with qualified interpreter rules. As you know, we have been working on our administrative rules. Mitch and Diana have been working with us, then they're on the board. And then also our QI program, and Larry, who's with us today. Yes. Yep. Sorry, still a little bit hard for those online. So hopefully this is better. Outdoor voice. Okay, wait, I think this is much better. Okay, there we go. So the administrative rules, we're working on that with a small work group. We're getting so close. We're making progress. 2 days ago, we worked on it. What our goal is to make those rules more concise and maybe easier for individuals, both qualified interpreters and the deaf community, hard of hearing and deaf blind community, to understand and be able to utilize. So hopefully, we're getting so close, so soon, but we will be sharing with the board and others to, share the changes. And also one of our goals is to hold town halls. We know it's really important that we have not only the interpreters involved, but also the deaf community. So as Annie shared, that she's happy, her group is happy to partner with us. So we hope to have some good information out there as we move forward on the administrative rules. Just a couple of things about the administrative rules. I feel like if I turn this way, it's going to stay loud here. So some of the things on the administrative rules is adding deaf persons' rights and the deaf interpreter certification section. So that's one of the big changes that we know the community has asked for. And then lastly, we do want to make sure you know that there is an opportunity for public input. And we'll be making sure to get, as we mentioned during town halls, and make sure we get input from those that would like to provide some input on it. And I said lastly, but one more thing, we did submit the request for rulemaking, which is helping us to get the process started in submitting those new rules. Next slide, please, Colleen. So updated testing stats. I know we've seen these slides before, but we wanted to provide some updated ones since August. So this is fiscal year 23 in its entirety. So October 2022 to September 2023.
Our TEP pass rate is 62%. So we had 68 people who tested, 42 who passed, and 26 who did not pass. And that's for the TEP. And then also the BEI performance test results that we did. So there, as you know, the basic, advanced, and masters. So our BEI basic, 53% passed. BEI advanced, we had 30%. And BEI masters, we did not unfortunately have anyone who passed in 2022. 4 did test though. And we know that's a concern. Next slide, please. So since we're speaking about testing, we know this has been an interest for a little while now, and we were able to work with Texas and pull some information off their website about their tests administered and pass rates as well. So the number of tests that were administered for BEI master's level in Texas was 23. Michigan had 4. The tests passed in Texas were 6 and Michigan 1. And then master's test failed was 17 and 3 that failed in Michigan. Pass rates 26 and 25%. Colleen, is that different? I thought we had no test pass for masters. Was that maybe a recent change?
I believe that was based on fiscal year, so
Oh,
the
okay.
number might be a little off, like somebody could have taken it in a different
Okay.
period of 22, so.
Okay, thank you. You're right. It is October 2021 through September 2022, and then September 21 and August 2022. So that's the reason for the difference. And then BEI advanced, the number of tests administered were 57 in Texas and 27 in Michigan. Number of tests passed were 19 and 5. Advanced tests that fail, 38 and 22. Which is pass rates 33% and 19%. Next slide, please. And so for the BEI basic, number of tests administered by Texas were 174, and we had 36 in Michigan. Basic tests passed were 75, and Michigan had 18, and failed 99 and 18 for Michigan. And then pass rates were 43% and 50%. So Michigan had a little higher pass rate in that case, but very similar. And then the test of English proficiency, or TEP, administered in Texas were 374, and Michigan had 45. And then number of tests passed in Texas were 195, and then Michigan had 27. And then those pass rates were 52% and 60%. So next slide, please. So hopefully those numbers give you a little idea of comparisons between Texas and Michigan. We found some similarities and, obviously some differences because they do offer that test in Texas. I noticed that there was a higher number of tests that they took, but also I think their population might be higher as well, just a bit. So that could be a difference in some of the reasons why the numbers are so different. Okay, so updates on the numbers, which is what everyone's been waiting for. This is the exciting stuff that last time, as for those of you that were here, maybe not here, there was a request from the board and some others to give some statistics and some data. So Katrina's kind of spearheaded this and has been really worked really, really hard. I just have to say really hard to get this data. So with that, I'm going to have Katrina take over.
All right. Hi, everyone. Katrina speaking. So we pulled this data from Moyes after the board's request of some data points on September 26, 2023. And let me point out, when I'm new to the department, when they told me that this was manual, I really learned how manual it was. So when we pull data from Moyes, it populates into a spreadsheet, and sidebar, as an interpreter listed in MOIS, you can choose whether or not you want to have your contact information displayed, which would be email, phone number, city, state, county. And if you choose to not display that information, when we populate our MOIS data spreadsheet, or when we pull that data, interpreters who have their information not displayed do not pull their public information either. So like standard levels, endorsements, expiration dates, those should pull, but they don't automatically for some reason. So if somebody has their information not displayed, we have to go in individually and look up each of those people. So there's a lot, to it. And that's just the start of it. But when we pull these, we're seeing standard levels and endorsements, because that's what we give them here in Michigan. So, and there's a couple different ways you can look at the number. We have a total of 1,034 certified interpreters registered in the state of Michigan. And we break those up, as we know, in standard levels 1, 2, and 3. And so let's say if you're a standard level 1 or standard level 3 interpreter, we know you're qualified to interpret in standard level 1, 2, and 3 proceedings. So I'll just clarify these numbers. So for standard level 1, you'll see on the second line, there's a total of 978 interpreters, and that includes standard levels 2 and 3 who could interpret in a standard level 1 setting. So 2 different ways to look at it. Total who could take a level 1 assignment, and then there is only 150 who have their highest standard level is a standard level 1, just for clarification. And so then standard level 2, we have 769 standard level 2 interpreters, or whose highest level is a standard level 2. And then 828 who could take a standard level 1 or 2 assignment. And then standard level 3, we have 59 standard level 3 interpreters, which is also equal to the number of legal endorsements we have, because if you're a legal endorsed interpreter, that's how you become a standard level 3. A part of that 1,034, our grand total number, there are 56 who don't hold a standard level, but have their EIPA only. And so they do educational interpreting work. And upcoming, we'll have some visuals of these graphs. So we'll kind of present the information a little bit differently. And for endorsements, we have 474 medical mental health endorsements, 155 deaf-blind endorsements, and again, that 59 legal. This year for the 2023-2024 school year, we currently have 16 underqualified or substitute educational interpreters. We do have a few pending at the moment, but 16. And we have received 2 official complaints or grievances since our last meeting. Next slide. All right, so this is now looking at the totals for like their highest standard level. Again, so just the breakdown, we have 150 standard level 1. This is reading from top to bottom. Our majority is standard level 2, 769 interpreters, and then 59 standard level 3. All right, next slide. And this is the visual of the endorsements that we have in the state of Michigan. 474 have medical mental health, 155 have deaf blind, and 59 have legal. And now this is only on the standard level 1 interpreters. Of the 150 who have their highest certification as a standard level 1, only 38 of them have a deaf-blind endorsement. And that's the only endorsement that a standard level 1 interpreter could have. Standard level 2. So again, that's the reading from top to bottom. The top line is the total number of interpreters who have the highest standard level 2. That 96 of them have a deaf-blind endorsement. 420 have a medical mental health endorsement, and 90 of them have both. a deafblind, and a medical mental health endorsement. And standard level 3, again, standard level 3 and legal endorsed interpreters are equivalent. We have 59. Of those 59, 19 have a deafblind endorsement. 54 of them have a medical mental health endorsement. 18 of them have all 3 possible endorsements: deafblind, medical mental health, and legal. And 4 of them have the legal endorsement that would get them to a standard level 3 only, but no additional endorsements. Now, I know the board asked for certification type and the breakdown. So this is a little bit, because Moise pulls standard levels and that's what Michigan tracks, it's a little bit more difficult to get these numbers. And so we were able to come up with some estimates using the data that we were able to pull. And we looked at both their standard levels and expiration date, but some of these interpreters could be projected into multiple categories or overlap because EIPA and RID has the same expiration date, 6/30, June 30th. And also we identified EIPA elementary only out there. That's the educational, because standard level 2 and 3 interpreters could select secondary as their, if they want secondary education on their credential. So there's a little bit of overlap in where that they may fall. So there's our estimates based on certification type, RID having the majority. Yep, next. All right, so of our total 1,034 interpreters certified in Michigan, 452 of them are Michigan residents or have Michigan resident addresses, and a total of 582 from out of state. And then you can see the breakdown. The states is listed from most number of interpreters to least, and we do have 3 in Canada, Ontario. So Florida is the next state that has the most after Michigan. Some neighboring, some from farther away. And so now shifting gears, it might look similar, but now this is only Michigan. So before we were looking at all 1,034, and now we're looking at the 452 in the state of Michigan. We have 54 of them who only have an EIPA and work in educational settings and do not have a standard level. And then just for ease, I didn't include the breakdown of the total for each standard level 1, 2, and 3. You can add them up. But for standard level 1, whose highest standard level, there's 129 standard level 1 interpreters. And then standard level 2, we have 225 interpreters and 44 standard level 3 interpreters in Michigan. And then Michigan endorsement totals, 228, medical mental health, 142 who have a deaf-blind endorsement, and legal equivalent to the level 3, again, is 44. And then for the certification types, we have an additional estimate for Michigan. We have approximately 201 interpreters who have a BEI, 128 who would fall under the elementary EIPA. And we actually used RID's website to search as the state of Michigan, and there are 227. There's a chance our number is a little bit lower if they're newly certified and haven't submitted their information, or, just by a few. And again, there could be overlap in those numbers as well. And now this is Michigan interpreters, Michigan resident interpreters by county. So county goes from highest to lowest. And if you don't see the county on there, they do not have any certified interpreters in that county if they're not listed. Oakland has the highest, Genesee, Wayne, Kent. And here is a state map with those same numbers displayed, but just in a different way. So you can kind of see where they're at. We do have 2 in the Upper Peninsula. Although there could be, you know, bordering states that also have interpreters who commute to the UP, but yep, 2 there. And then this was additional information that was requested. So this is Michigan resident interpreters with the information that we're able to provide, standard levels and endorsements. And then so it gives the breakdown of for each county, how many interpreters they have, how many have only their EIPA, how many have a standard level 1, and that's the accumulative total for standard level 1 that includes those who would be in 2 and 3. And then how many have the secondary education specialty listed, how many have elementary, deaf-blind, medical, mental health, and legal. And that is the next 2 slides. So it covers all of the counties that we have in Michigan. This is the second, yep. And for the 2023-2024 school year, again, we have 16 underqualified or substitute educational interpreters who have submitted their paperwork. We do have a few pending. And these are their their counties, but this is the interpreters like where they reside. If they work in a different county, it will not show that, but nearby, we may assume. So yep, from highest to lowest. Yep. Thank you.
So that, all that data that Katrina just gave you, we also compiled and pulled together, the team did a list that you have with the interpreters with a lot of that information, their levels, counties, things like that. So I know that was asked for. So we did provide that in each of your packets as well. And Larry, did you have anything like that?
It only displays like contact information and for those who have chosen to display their contact information.
So it's everything you could find on the public registry, just to clarify. Any questions for Katrina or myself? A few hands. Katrina, you should probably take this.
And go ahead first.
This is Miriam speaking. Are we including interpreters that can provide ASL in the state of Michigan, but perhaps working in different states through vendors? Are those names included here as well?
Yes, those are. Yep. Yep. So that packet that you have should include all of it actually goes to 1,051, but there are substitutes from underqualified substitutes from last year. So they're subtracted from the 1,034, but it does include all of the out-of-state interpreters. Yep.
And with that question, just so I'm clear, do say if my organization hires a vendor to provide ASL services, does the vendor connect with Lara or the Bureau, or who do they connect to provide the list of their interpreters, ensuring that they have completed all the needed certifications and endorsements to practice in the state of Michigan? That's what we have here on this list as well, right?
Any interpreter that is certified in the state, you can pull up our website, the Michigan Online Interpreter System, and search that interpreter's name. And then you can see if they're certified and what their credentials are through our online system.
I guess my question is are we, sorry, Mitch, I see you.
Go ahead.
Are we connecting the Bureau with, are we keeping accountable, say our systems, hiring in vendors from different states on their list of interpreters? We are. That's, those names are here, right? The names of the vendor interpreters that may be hired out of state.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
This is Mitch speaking, and I'll follow up with what Miriam was saying. Why, can I have the camera on me, please? Perfect. So Mitch speaking, yeah, I want to follow up with what Miriam said. We are hoping that the health system or the other business who contacts the third-party vendor to provide interpreting services, we're hoping that they know about Michigan's laws and are compliant. And that they and the interpreters who are working for them or under their organization register with the state of Michigan, correct? But we, BCHS, do not proactively look for those individuals doing that. So regardless if the interpreter lives physically in the state of Michigan, or if they just show up on a screen in the state of Michigan, not talking about VRS, but mostly VRI, those interpreters really are responsible for having a Michigan credential and being registered under LARA BCHS. And deaf people can ask them to show their card, their certification. Right?
Correct.
Okay, great. Sarah.
I'm just waiting for the video to come on me. All right. First of all, whoa, you did a lot of work. Thank you. We appreciate this. Thank you. Hats off to you. This was a lot of work, a big effort. I don't have a question necessarily for you to answer. I just want to make a comment regarding this. I'm not going to lie to you. I am disappointed in these numbers. So disappointed. We have 1,000 people who are registered, and under half of them actually are in the state of Michigan. My heart, you're killing me right now. That's just something I wanted to point out and make everyone aware that we have a lot of interpreters. We say we have a lot of interpreters. This 1,000 doesn't actually reflect the numbers. So it seems like we have under 452, what was the number? The number of interpreters who actually live in the state of Michigan. Huh. Wow. I just wanted to highlight that number because that is very low.
Okay, James. Yeah, again, yes. Thank you so much. We have no idea. I mean, honestly, you really don't. You really don't have any idea. I mean, we're very thankful for these numbers. This hasn't happened. We haven't gotten these, so we've never had this. Period. Nothing. We've had nothing. So we have this now. Thank you so much. And honestly, I'd recommend, I want to thank you, BCHS, for all the hard work that you did. We need to take a look at this information, digest it a bit, and see what comes out. We can't, I mean, honestly, you can't fully respond to this right now. I don't think. I think that'd be impossible. One thing I would like to hit on, though, is when you look at the numbers, how many tests in Texas and how many tests in Michigan. So I looked at that and thought, okay. And then when we pull up the, how many people altogether there are in Texas and in Michigan and Texas, the population really is triple what Michigan's population is. So I did some quick calculations, and if I tripled our numbers, then the Texas test with tripling ours, we're still short. We're still short. We're not on par with Texas as to how many people are taking the test. So, I mean, worry about the percentage. It's the number of people that are trying and the number of people that are getting tested. And honestly, last year, I think altogether, and we welcomed, 10 new professional interpreters in Michigan in a year, 10. And if we were to, connect, with Andy's comments about 2035, it's our, responsibility for the aged deaf population, the community, that is going to be substantially higher. We are not ready to meet that accommodation, that need. We're not ready. We're not ready. So honestly, I want to ask, out of respect to the chair and the vice chair, gosh, we need to get resources, experts, like they're doing in Minnesota, those in our state, our experts, our people, those who are knowledgeable researchers here in Michigan, to help us to get a plan, to help BCHS in their plan and how to plan for this population to get more people certified and to move this along. I respectively want to know, about Minnesota, Gallaudet, Texas, California. They obviously are doing the work, but what I love about BCHS is the work that you've done. It's only been a few months, and you guys have really, you recognize that, the community that needs to be served. You come, you're being involved in the events, you're supporting the community. You're recognizing that, you're interacting with, how do you interact with doctors? How do you interact with lawyers? How do you interact with people in the community? Completely different in each of those venues, completely different. Professionals, community members, very different. So we need to establish a community plan, get some community experts, community awareness, specifically some grassroots Michigan people that can do this stuff and help you guys, help us.
Hi, this is April speaking. I would like to make a comment here. I have several comments. First of all, thank you. This document and this data is gold. And with that being said, is this going to be posted online so other people can review these numbers? This breakdown, is this PowerPoint going to be uploaded online? The presentation and the data, the spreadsheet?
We just wouldn't, I think we just have to discuss it. We haven't gotten that far. So it's a request noted that we'll try and get out there for everyone.
Great, thank you. I haven't mentioned this since I've been on the board. However, my role here is to represent the ITP community, the community colleges, and bringing in these new interpreters. And this data is so beneficial. We try to get metrics on students that pass and don't pass, others that go to other states to take tests. There's some students who might not reveal whether or not they passed or failed. But to be honest with you, our number of students, as far as interpreting training students, is decreasing due to decreasing since COVID. Since 2023, we have not recovered since the decrease has happened. Like James had mentioned, there's been 10 new interpreters that have come in the last year. And at our ITP, we've only graduated 11 in the last year. So the numbers are quite low. And I joined the Myriad meeting last night. And it was a quick little meeting, but it was a very robust conversation about what we're going to do as far as recruiting people into this field and making sure that their education is strong enough. And when they graduate, they're ready to sit for a test, that they're ready to jump into the field and start working. I guess this would become a community effort. Yes, we as a team are trying to do this, and the colleges have their obligations as well, but we also have limitations, and we are aware of these. So as a community, we want to partner And like what I've seen Mira doing just as of recently, they've been really pulling up their sleeves and going out to the community and connecting with people and going out to colleges. And what their goal is to improve this profession. And we are open to these collaborations. I know I am with Lansing Community College and we're the one ITP in the area. There's about 3 or 4 in the state. And that's why I'm asking if this is going to be posted, because they need to see the numbers too. This is important data. We need to increase the number of interpreters. We know this, we are aware of this, but that's going to require a community effort. So thank you.
Just one follow-up comment on that. This is a snapshot in time because our voice is outdated. Absolutely welcome. I mean, we're happy to share this information, but just understand it is a snapshot in time. And so hopefully we can pull this information, I don't know, once or twice a year, but like I said, it's really a big pull. And eventually, fingers crossed, when we get that new system, we'll have these things, and we're making note of that so that when we do have that new system, it's an easier thing to pull and not quite so heavy on pulling. But just wanted to make sure it was clear that these are like a snapshot in time. So when we pulled that, what was it, September 26th data, it's kind of a snapshot. Yeah, James.
This is James. Honestly, like the stock market, right? I mean, I don't want to look at that every week, right? I mean, the benefit is the snapshot in time, the 1 year, right? I mean, that's really honestly the best view, to be honest. So you got to see, a long-term plan to adjust for that. And so we need, like we're trying to set up programs and do all this. We can say, hey, next month it's going to work. I mean, it's not. That's not going to happen. We have to, build it over time, develop it over time, look at it over time so we can see these 1 year snapshots to see if it's effective or not. That's the only way to be fair. So please don't, do all this, and try to get this out every 3 months. I don't know that is going to help us much. My opinion, just my opinion. So.
This is Sarah. I agree.
Katrina speaking. I do want to add that maybe if we did this again next year, we might pull the data a little bit later to account for the grace periods of those RID interpreters who might not have renewed June 30th. So some of them, depending on the expiration dates, might be included on this list because it was as of September 26th. So just a note.
This is the
Miriam.
medium speaking. I love James' community plan. I think the trace to all of it is access, right? Focusing that community plan on education, like education to employers, to our healthcare workers, legal system, educational system. But what is that education gonna do good for if we are not ready with and equipped with the number of interpreters needed to serve our community members? So recruitment, elevating number of interpreters to this profession to be ready for our 2035, our elderly. We know that VRI is not the answer for our elderly. So how can we work towards that goal?
This is okay. This is who is this? James? Nope. Okay, this is Mitch speaking then. I have a question about 452 interpreters. I mean, I'm looking at the list by county. Okay. Does that include people who don't publicly mention or disclose their address, but you did the investigation and you found them?
Correct.
Wow. Again, I will echo what the rest of the board has said. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and
I did have help. Sorry. I did have some help.
okay, did have some help. Okay. All right. Appreciate that. I mean, really, this hasn't happened. I mean, to my knowledge, we haven't had this. And so we've had Moise, right? We see, that number, 1,000, plenty. And then we're like, oh, and when we take a closer look, okay.
And when we pull that data from Moise, there are duplicates, that you sometimes see. So we do go through and have to weed out those duplicates as well.
Right.
And one follow-up on that too, some of the things that we noticed going through the data was, we have people who go to Florida for the winter. Where's Diana? She's not here today, but those in those circumstances who maybe are here part of the year, but we just can't necessarily capture that. Also the surrounding states, Ohio, for instance, I mean, we captured that they live in Ohio or that they live wherever, but even though they're out of state, they could be a mile over the border and serving Michigan population. So some of that is something also we noticed when we were doing the data, just something to think about when you're looking at the numbers.
Okay, the one thing I was thinking about, and I'm not sure like how this research would come to fruition or how we would approach it, but in 2006, DODHH hadn't added the DB yet, but DODHH did a survey of interpreters. And they did have like a supply and demand study done. And so I am wondering, they project, what we'll need, what we'll have. They did some projections and compare it. I have that information at home somewhere. I'll have to find it. But I also know that MDCR, DOD, DB, HH, I think they have an assessment called Right. A needs assessment without us. Thank you. Not without us. Wow. Interpreter clarification. Not without us. You're right, Rowan. So when was that? 2019? It was 2019. Okay. So I'm curious, could we figure out, to me, when I look at the numbers, 452, wow, seems low, but can we really figure out what the need is? Where the need is. We know from our own experiences, where we think the deaf populations reside, Flint, Detroit, Grand Rapids, just like where all the, hearing people reside in Flint, Detroit, Grand Rapids, those big cities. But do we have any idea or your experience with other professions, maybe the nursing profession, nurses' aides, I don't know, how that type of demand study or research is done? Any idea?
Short answer, no. Yes. No, let me clarify. We have had conversations about doing that needs assessment again, and have been working with MDCR to try and see if we can do that again. So it's in the works. Hopefully that's helpful to know. But it's one of those things that does take a little bit of time. So we're working on trying to get that again.
James? Yeah, just piggyback on your comment, talking about those different areas. So Deb has been coming to like every meeting forever. How many years? Yes, Deb is the champ. She's always here. And she mentioned several times, or every time she's here, excuse me, that she has to turn jobs down. You get requests, she turns them down. I'm looking down there and say, well, Kent County's got 40 interpreters. And of course, she would have to turn things down. That's not enough. We have over 40 employees every day, with the hospitals and the doctors and in the system. So, and yes, of course, she would have to do that. So, light bulb just went off. Yes, here's the numbers bearing out what she's been saying. So it really helps us to understand the content, the context, excuse me, the numbers and the experiences. There's a correlation. And that really, I feel, thank you so much, Laura, for the work, Larry, for the work. And everything you've done. Please, these numbers, are the evidence that you need. to show the people you need to convince about the money, the services, the everything. It's all right here in these numbers. Okay, any more questions or comments? Yeah, this is Ron. I want to clarify too. You said that, Kent County has 40 interpreters. I understand that. Northview School District has 22 full-time interpreters. So just saying, it ain't 40. It's actually less. And that Northview is in Kent County. So we really have about 20 interpreters available in the county.
If I remember correctly, this is off of addresses that they report, right? So like their home addresses, so they could be working in a different address than they are
Right.
living in, maybe. Not that accounts for everything, but.
And this is James again. Yeah. And that's a good point. We know that snowbirds, move back and forth, but I'm assuming they have to have an address here in Michigan when they apply to Michigan, to process my new certification. No, but I wouldn't put down my Michigan address. I mean, I'm not going to put down my Florida address for Michigan. Well, maybe I would. Oh,
Colleen,
okay.
even-
Well, back and forth, Michigan, Florida, Florida, Michigan, Michigan, Florida.
Do we know if the Moist system allows us to put two addresses down? We may ask for like a primary address or something. Or are they allowed to put two addresses? Actually, maybe nobody on our team knows that, but because I got that question, but I'm just wondering if that's even captured in there.
Can you put down two addresses? No, as an interpreter, I don't think I've ever seen a space for me to write in two addresses.
Sure.
So I believe that to not be true. You can only put down one address.
Okay.
Okay, Miriam.
This is Miriam speaking. I am just going back in memory, coming from the healthcare system in Grand Rapids, and working with our partners, Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I recall in 2021, we did an assessment of how many medical appointments we were able to meet that year, and seeing that 60% of those, around 60% of those were met, but what happened to the other 40%? We had to try to accommodate and work with patients and doctors' schedules and see how we can reschedule, how we can, and just because between our staff interpreters and our partner vendor interpreters, they had lost out of 80 interpreters, they were down to 25 interpreters available to provide medical ASL interpreting. So extremely hard, to your point of how do we quantify? And that is if the healthcare system has a language services department that even cares to compile that data or see that these needs are being met for our community members. So that's also another point.
Anyone else? No, just questions specifically for Laura.
I'm not sure about that. This is Sarah speaking. Let me think. Oh, actually, you know what? Yes, I do have something to say. I want to go back to this point as far as accountability. I'm sorry, what? Let me just make sure we have access. Cameras on me, right? Okay. So going back to the accountability piece, what I've been hearing and seeing in the community, Michigan Department of Education, low incidence outreach are saying they're not responsible for looking into waivers. Then we look to BCHS and we don't really get an answer. We're not really sure on who's responsible for the waivers. Nothing's been straightforward. And as I'm looking at these numbers, well, let me find this page. Where is that number at? The underqualified temporary educational interpreters. 5, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. That is a total of 16. Mm-mm. I call it how it is. I'm not gonna say the word, but this is not true. We know this to not be true. What are we doing to put some teeth in the rules and regulation? How do we give it teeth, give it power? You're working so hard. Why is Anna work so hard? Why is Larry work so hard? Why are we all working so hard if there's no teeth? We get together to talk about these rules, but if there's nothing that's actually going to enforce these rules, and we're not, who does this harm? Who are we harming by not being able to enforce it?
It harms me.
Exactly. We're harming my son, who's 14, who's going to become an adult. That harms him. So let me go back to this again. Again, I want to say to you all, to BCHS, we have to make sure that we have power in our rules and laws and regulations and policies, that we do not have underqualified interpreters. I'm not even talking about the 3.5. I'm not even referring to that, the 3.5 to 4. I'm talking about people who have zero credentials, absolutely nothing. And we know they exist in the community. We know they are working. I've seen it firsthand. So it's important that, for instance, if you do it once, it's like they need to learn their lesson, and they're not. Like, we have to show them that we mean business. If we mean business and we show up in that way, then people might start abiding by the rules and regs. As of right now, there's no consequences to what they're doing. No one's holding them accountable. And they keep working and they keep going on and causing harm. And I understand our numbers are low. I get it. I really, really do get it. But when we're having these conversations, you're talking about my son, my baby, my life. You're talking about my parents. I mean, my dad's passed, but you're talking about my family, actual faces, people. It's not just, I don't interpret, just so you are aware, I don't interpret just to make money. That's not it. Yes, it's nice to have a paycheck, but at the end of the day, I have skin in the game. My mom, my son, their lives, their future, that matters. They matter. Let's put things in place with the rules and laws that make it work for them and protect them. We need to make sure that we are protecting that class. That's all.
I would agree, absolutely.
James said, thank you for the map as well. Thank you. Okay, so thank you. Yes, we appreciate that. Next, we have public comment.
This is Colleen speaking. Okay, thank you. I see a public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you for what you're doing. I'm in on the community plan, as you know. Deb Atwood, Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services. Sorry about that. I just assume people know who I am. I can talk very loud. It does not make a difference. Higher, lower, up. Okay. Deb Atwood, Executive Director for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Services, Grand Rapids. Thank you. Goosebumps, everything going on. This just is tremendous. We have never seen anything like that. And I have been with this community since 2001. Never have we seen numbers like that. And yes, looking at those numbers, yes, it's staggering. Last month, we dropped 20 jobs. 20 people like Rowan, like your son, either had to reschedule or got to write on a piece of paper back and forth because that's how we do it. Don't want to offend the doctor, but that's how we do it. I can go on and on. I'm going to talk about the complaints. What was stated, 4 in a year, 3 in a year. We get 3 or 4 a week. We try to tell people and we try to motivate the communities that we serve that please go file a complaint, please go file a complaint. We'll sit down next to you. We will have somebody help you with that, whatever it takes. We'll come to your house. We'll bring a piece of paper, whatever it takes, and we will do that. There's not enough education for our communities to know that it's safe, that it will be represented, that it will actually go through, that something will be done. How many times have we all heard, nothing will be done about it? It's not going to happen. They're not going to listen to me. I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want my name out there for everybody to know, because everybody's going to know my name and they're going to know what I complained about. That's got to change. Because internally we're drowning. We have no funding for our advocacy program. None. Other than Ryan White, but that's a different thing. So it just comes out of our budget automatically. And there are not enough hours in the day to cover all the complaints and the education. We do what we can for education, but it's gotta come. It's gotta come from MDCR, DOD, BHH. It's gotta come from all of that. I appreciate what Annie's doing. It's gotta happen on a regular basis. And you can't just set up one meeting in Kent County and expect that they're all gonna come, because you know that's not gonna happen. You know these communities better than I do. So as far as the complaints, it's difficult. It just, it makes you want to cry for these people that have to tolerate this on a daily basis. It just, it breaks my heart being within, and I know how it is to have a deaf son, and all of that happens on a regular basis. Mine lives out of state, but it's still happening. So what are we doing about this? Let's get more interpreters. Let's do what we can about this. I want to real quick jump into the point on VRI and who is policing, who is in charge of, and I've discussed this with many people. We have interpreters that are from out of state, and we have these big box companies that are bringing in interpreters from out of state. How many of these deaf people know, I want to see your endorsement. I want to see your endorsement. Are they going to ask? So how do we know that they have the endorsement? And if we're not policing these out of state interpreters, what's the point of all of you to go and get your endorsements and to get your CEUs and spend all that money and spend all that time if we're allowing out of state interpreters just to come in and do whatever they want to do when they want to do it? I'm sure some of them are very good, but why should you follow the rules when they don't have to? And it's right back to what was discussed before. Who's policing them? That's a whole nother budget. That's a whole nother thing. But what are we doing about this? Something's got to be done. I appreciate all the work that's been happening, because this has been, it's taken a long time. It's taken a long time, and it just hasn't, but it's happening now. So thank you for everyone. And thank you for always tolerating me for coming up here and speaking. And my staff, thank you, because it gets me out of the office for the day.
Thank you. This is Colleen speaking. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to give public comment? Anyone else? Next, we'll move to persons that might want to give comment on Zoom.
Okay, this is Tammy. We have one person, Sonia Harrison, if you would like to turn on your camera. Oh, no. Can you hear me? My camera was covered, so I had to uncover it, and now I can't. My host stopped my camera, so can you put it back on? I know I'm unmuted, and I am planning on speaking, but I really would like people to see me just because I'm a visual person. So if you can turn my camera back on, that'd be great. I'm working on it. If not, I'll just start talking. So I have notes. Thank you for interpreting. I want to say, like, first and foremost, okay, here comes my video.
First and foremost, like, thank you for putting together this list. Again, like everybody else said, this is unprecedented. We haven't had these data points historically ever. And so this is phenomenal. And I really appreciate all the time and energy. I think you should deserve like a raise and an extra cup of coffee or something for all of this. This is great. And it exceeded my expectations. Like I knew we had requested information, but I feel like this exceeded, like this is phenomenal. That said, it opens up a lot of other questions, which I know we're going to be like, James said, we're going to be digesting this and coming up with some questions. I have some already. So I was thinking about as far as like the best time to do this each year. And I just thought I would throw out there possibly June, because June is going to be right before we do any renewals. So it'll be before people drop off, and maybe that would be a good time. And if we did it this coming June, you would have that comparison between September and June and how that data might have been off because of being in the month of September. I don't know if that's helpful or not. And I wanted to talk about, so we talked about the numbers and what they're reflecting. We do have video relay interpreters and video remote interpreters that are interpreting in the state of Michigan, but on a screen. And I know we've already addressed this, but I worked for Sorensen for 10 years as a video remote interpreter, not interpreter, VRS. So just the phone services, and almost none of my calls originated or went into Michigan. So most of the people who are coming into Michigan are likely not from Michigan interpreters. So that would be something to consider when we're talking about whether someone is credentialed to work in Michigan or not. But a big glaring thing that I noticed about this data is that the way that it was represented was interpreters. And at no point did we differentiate the deaf interpreters. The last I knew, we had 5 or 6 deaf interpreters that were credentialed to work in the state of Michigan. This was a few years ago. I don't know if they've all dropped off or if there are still deaf interpreters that are credentialed to work in the state of Michigan, but I would like to see those numbers. And I would like those numbers to be part of the publication because that will highlight for the deaf community the need. And then it will also provide information about the availability of deaf interpreters in the state of Michigan. And I think it also highlights our need for training for deaf interpreters and inclusion of the deaf community in training so that they could maybe become deaf interpreters. So there's that part. A comment about the out-of-state interpreters. So I was contacted for a job from an out-of-state agency or whatever you want to call them. And it was a teamed job. It was going to be multi-days. And so when I got my information for my team interpreter, I always contact my teams ahead of time and have communication with them. That name was not on the Michigan interpreter directory. So I contacted the agency back and said, I'm not able to connect with my team. I need their contact information. And also, by the way, are they credentialed to work in the state of Michigan? Well, no, we're a nearby state. We don't know anything about Michigan credentialing. So when I told them that they were not allowed legally to work in the state of Michigan and they would need to find someone else, they said, well, we don't have time. Is there any way around this? So in conversation with them, they decided that they would contact Lara and get a waiver. So that person could come and work in the state of Michigan. I told them if they were going to do that, they needed to also be in communication with the deaf person or people so that they would also be a part of that waiver process, because I'm not even 100% sure if the deaf person has to sign it or if the agency could just sign it saying that they're sending someone that's not credentialed, but that's how that played out. So that person, I believe, if I remember right, came to Michigan interpreted under a waiver. But again, if we don't have waiver information, how many times is that happening? And how many times is the interpreter not mentioning to the out-of-state agency and that their team needs to be on the list too? And maybe the agency is just sending the one interpreter to do the job in Michigan because that's what they need. And they don't have that proper line of credentialing. I'm also wondering if we can get numbers like I think I already talked about a little bit of the unfilled jobs, whether we can get the numbers from the agencies of like some statistics on how many job requests they get and then how many go unfilled. And then if we can get statistics maybe from larger healthcare systems or other places that continually contract interpreters to find out how many times their requests are not filled. If that might be a possibility. I also want to just throw out there, not all of the people who are endorsed are working in the field that they're endorsed in. So I've talked to interpreters that are legally endorsed and they aren't doing any legal work at all. They have the endorsement because they have the qualifications to get it, but they don't actually want to take any jobs in legal, and so they don't. So that is something to consider when we're looking at numbers. Some people are working full-time, not in the interpreting field, so they're only taking jobs when they're available, or they're retired, and so they're really not taking any jobs at all. So that's kind of one thing to consider with the numbers. There are not two address options on the application to send your information into the state of Michigan, so that I don't think that's anything you need to worry about, whether or not there's two addresses. And then the last comment that I had was, I'm super excited that you guys are talking about the rules and regs again and that you're drafting something up. I went through the rules and regs a few years ago with a fine tooth comb and made a huge amount of notes on it. But I haven't looked at it again because it was dropped for quite some time. So I'm wondering if when you are going to be having the town halls, can we get a copy of the draft well ahead of time? Because I hesitate to go back and look through that old draft. I don't think it's going to be anything like what you guys are drafting now. So if there's a way that we can get a copy of your new draft of the rules and regs so that I can kind of dig through that and see what thoughts I might have, that would be super helpful. So if at some point that could be shared with the interpreters in Michigan, I would appreciate it. And that's all my public comment. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you guys' hard work.
This is Tammy. Other hands raised or any comments in the question and answer box?
It's Colleen speaking. Thank you, Tammy. The next item on the agenda is announcements, and I'll turn it back over to the chair.
Do we have any announcements? All right, seeing none. We have a motion for adjournment. This is Rowan. Make a motion to adjourn.
This is Sarah. I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, the meeting is adjourned at 12:57. Thank you to the interpreters.